Good evening. Thanks for joining us for this Pennsylvania primary election special. I'm Ken Rice. Polls across the state are closing as we speak, and we're watching several key races, and we'll be right here with results and analysis throughout the next hour. We have team coverage for you with our reporters zeroing in on the Democratic race in the 12th Congressional District. Chris Hoffman is live at incumbent Summer Lee's watch party downtown, and Jessica Guay is live at challenger Bhavani Patel's campaign headquarters in Squirrel Hill. And KDKA political editor John Delano is helping round out our coverage with his own analysis and that of his Inside PA Politics panel. We're going to begin right now with Chris Hoffman covering Summer Lee tonight. Chris.
Ken, she'll be at the Renaissance Hotel here in downtown. Now, the festivities are really not starting until 8:30, so at this point, everything's pretty much just quiet. We got some people setting up here, and again, as those results are starting to pour in, they actually have a big board that's showing some of the early results coming back at this point, and you can see where some of it's coming back. At this point, there's still a lot that has to be done. Lee, she cast her ballot this morning in Swissvale. She's the first black woman to be elected to Congress in the state of Pennsylvania for the House of Representatives. The former state representative has been part of the progressives recently elected to positions in our area, including endorsements from Mayor Ed Gainey as well as Allegheny County Executive Sarah Innamorato. Funding certainly has not been a problem for her in this campaign. It's raised more than $1 million in the fourth quarter just of last year. An issue at the center of this race has been the conflict in Gaza. Representative Lee has been outspoken for a ceasefire, and part of this district includes Squirrel Hill, which, as we know, is a historically Jewish neighborhood. She expects this issue to play a role in votes, but expects there to be other issues that people are concerned about on the ballot.
People all over PA-12 vote for many reasons, right? There are going to be some people in some of our beloved communities that are going to vote because of Israel, and not all of them will vote the same way. There will be some people who vote because of housing. There will be others who vote because of our air quality, people who vote because of our wages.
Again, at this point, Representative Lee is not here. Their festivities, again, set to start at the bottom of the hour. We will continue to follow this race, and our coverage continues over in Squirrel Hill with reporter Jessica Guay, who is with the Bhavani Patel campaign. Jess?
Thanks, Chris. Yeah, we're waiting for the results to start rolling in here at Bhavani Patel's campaign office in Squirrel Hill, and some of her campaign team members and volunteers are getting ready. Patel tells us that they ran a really strong campaign. She also said that she's hoping to receive support from Democrats who are unhappy with what's been happening in their community. Today, Patel stopped at a polling place in Monroeville, which is where she grew up. Her campaign team tells us that she greeted voters at multiple polls throughout the day before they voted for her or incumbent U.S. Representative Summer Lee in the 12th Congressional Democratic primary. And it's been a pretty heated race, as political editor John Delano has been reporting. The Edgewood Borough Councilwoman accuses Lee of abandoning President Joe Biden in favor of an ultra-left-wing agenda. Patel's hoping progressive Democrats who are not pleased with Lee's identification with the Squad and pro-Palestinian and anti-Israel positions will help her win this primary. Patel has been running on a platform of supporting President Biden and aid for Israel. Some of the issues she's committed to include advocating for gun violence prevention, fighting for reproductive justice, and building a strong economy. Patel told us that she's really enjoyed knocking on doors and getting a sense of the day-to-day challenges people in the district face.
We've had conversations ranging from the challenges of working class issues, right? Everything from the U.S. Steel and Nippon to different foreign policy challenges to, I've had lots of conversations with labor unions. We've earned several labor union endorsements. And so it's been a diverse array of issues, but at the end of the day, I think the thing that's been a consistent theme is being able to hold on to the positivity and the promise of what this region has to offer. And again, I think bringing people into the Democratic fold and giving them an option that's not focused on division.
The winner will face Republican James Hayes in the November election. We're going to be keeping an eye on the results as they come in this evening, so make sure you stay with us. Back to you, Ken.
Okay, Jessica Guay and Chris Hoffman, thanks to you both. Now, in all, we're watching 17 races tonight, the presidential primaries, even though Biden's and Trump's opponents gave up a while ago. Primaries for 3 statewide row offices, 2 congressional primaries, and primaries for state House and state Senate. And we do expect some of the first results that we see are going to be from mail-in ballots, which counties began to process at the same time the polls opened this morning. First, the statewide race with the most candidates running and no incumbent, Pennsylvania Attorney General. 5 Democrats are running. Keir Bradford Gray, Eugene DePasquale, Joe Kahn, Jared Solomon, and Jack Stolzmeyer. And there are 2 Republican candidates, Dave Sunday and Craig Williams. For state treasurer, there are 2 Democrats running for the nomination, Ryan Bizzarro and Aaron McClellan. The winner between them will face incumbent Republican Stacey Garrity in November. And in the Democratic primary for state auditor general, it's Malcolm Kenyatta versus Mark Pinsley. The Republican incumbent, Timothy Dufour, is running unopposed tonight. Now, we touched on U.S. House District 12 a moment ago. Democrat Summer Lee, the only local incumbent in Congress with a fight for renomination tonight. Edgewood Councilwoman Bhavani Patel, as we've mentioned, is challenging Lee. That district covers all of the city of Pittsburgh and suburban areas to the east and south. Also following U.S. House District 14 tonight, covering most of the southwestern corner of the state. Only the Democratic primary is contested. Ken Bache and Christopher Jados running. The winner will challenge Republican incumbent Guy Reschenthaler in the fall. All right, into the state races now. We're following 2 primaries in 1 state Senate district, the 45th district in Allegheny County, represented by Senator Jim Brewster, but he's retiring. Nick Piscitano and Mackenzie White are running for the Democratic nomination. The Republican candidates are Jennifer Dentini and Kemi Stulginskis. And we're following 7 local races for Pennsylvania House tonight. 2 of these are for open seats, while 5 incumbent state reps are facing challenges from their own party, and we'll be updating those results throughout this hour. Now, for the past several weeks, KDKA political editor John Delano has been assembling a panel of young voters in his weekly Inside PA Politics show. They've provided some great insight on what issues matter most to those shaping the future. Tonight, he joins us with 4 of those panel members. John, please introduce us.
Thanks, Ken. It's good to be back with you again, of course. And tonight, I'm joined by 4 panelists from around southwestern Pennsylvania. On my left, Shelley Pikelick, Mount Lebanon Democrat and mom of 5. And Mike Smarr, chair of the Findlay Township Democratic Committee and dad of 2. On my right, we have Aaron Coper, president of the Allegheny County Council of Republican Women. And we have with us Rico Elmore, who is the vice chair of the Beaver County Republican Party. Now, you're all active in party politics, folks, and I'd like you to try to keep these panel discussions focused on your opinions, not really the words of the party chieftains that I'm sure are in touch with you even today. So let's begin with the fact that there seems to be very low voter turnout today. You were each at the polls. Did you see a lot of voters voting in person, or do you think most of the voters or some of them were voting by mail? Let's start with you, Shelley. What did you see?
Sure. Well, anecdotally, from my own experience today, when I walked into my polling place, the first thing I heard was one of the poll workers saying, "It is totally dead in here today." Those were her exact words. And I went on to ask her if she felt like it was quieter than other primary races, and she said absolutely, without a doubt. And it sounds like, from what we've been discussing and seeing here today, that sort of speaks to a larger trend across the area.
And how about with Republicans? Even fewer ballot races on the Republican side. Is anyone voting?
I hope so. Yes, I do think that they're voting. I think that they got a late start in the day. I heard that a lot more people were going after work and after dinner. But again, to Shelley's point, I got the same, I saw for myself at the city of Pittsburgh polls all throughout the West End. Hardly anyone at the polls. Mail-in ballot numbers, in my opinion, are also really low. So overall, I'm hearing throughout the suburbs, and what I saw in the city of Pittsburgh is a low voter turnout.
Mike, what about on the Democratic side, particularly with younger voters? Did you see any specific reason why younger voters were out?
Well, for a few of those races that they're going to come out, but whenever I checked in Findlay Township, I saw the count was 57. There's about 650 registered Democrats. So
and you were the 57th voter?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
So
how about
low.
in Beaver County, Rico?
Well, in good old Beaver County, the numbers were just like Allegheny County. They were low. But I think that the issue is the fact that we do have a lot of people out working. There's families are out working. Kids are going to school. There's all that going on. So when everyone comes home, they go and do their vote. And I think that in this election, it's just there's not a lot of contested races on the Republican side.
Right.
So less turnout. But come the general election, we'll see a big turnout.
Well, I guess that's the next question, although we don't have much time for it, and maybe we'll come back to it in our next block. But the question of whether this is setting a bar, a very low bar, for interest in the November election? We'll go real quick. What do you think, Mike? Does it have any relevance at all to November?
No. I think people are going to be bombarded with election ads from now until November. So.
Shelley?
I agree with Mike. I think turnout will be high in November. This isn't really an indicator of that.
Aaron?
Listen, we're a battleground state, so we have to win PA. Republicans are going to come out strong in November.
Rico, last word.
Oh,
10
yes.
seconds.
Republicans are coming out strong, and we're proud.
We're proud. All right. Ken, back to you. We'll have more with our panel in a few minutes.
John, thank you. Panel, thank you. We are following returns, but we're also following the weather. Let's check in now with First Alert meteorologist Ray Petlin. Hey, Ray.
Yeah, some of the returns coming in on the radar are back in Ohio, and that means some rain. Most of this is going to be light. Some very dry air has been with us throughout the day. Our relative humidity still 25%, meaning that this rain is falling into very dry air and in most cases evaporating before it hits the ground. So still a little time before that rain gets here. You can see a couple showers reported, New Philadelphia, Akron, and Cleveland. So that's where the rain showers are legitimate, where the radar is hitting the rain and it's actually making its way down to the sensors on the ground. Everyone else is just seeing more and more cloud cover building in. So an overcast setup here, looking off of Mount Washington through the night. We are going to see the rain turn on, and it's going to be mainly a nighttime rain. A couple of those raindrops will carry over into tomorrow morning, but we should dry up, although the clouds are going to be stubborn. That's going to hold temperatures back, meaning a chilly day tomorrow, potentially some frost, but we also have some 70s and 80s in the forecast. More on that coming up.
All right, thanks, Ray. We've got more primary night coverage just ahead. The presidential nominations are all but guaranteed, but why are some voters still voting against their party's candidates? We're looking at the protest vote movement. And with 7 candidates running, it's the most competitive statewide race on the ballot. A closer look at the contest for Pennsylvania Attorney General. And welcome back to our primary election night special here on KDKA+. Votes from today's primary are just coming in. We're following those results for you in real time. And how those votes shake out could determine the direction Pennsylvania goes come November. Joining us now, KDKA political editor John Delano and his Inside PA Politics panel on what these race results could mean. John.
Well, Ken, what I want to take a look at with our panel now is the protest vote, which essentially is the vote against Donald Trump and against Joe Biden, and what it means going forward. And we do have the most recent votes that come in are those from mail-in ballots that were counted already and shortly after 8 o'clock were released, at least here in Allegheny County. And if we take a quick look at the Allegheny County vote, what we see is that Joe Biden got 70,000 roughly in Allegheny County among Democrats. His opponent, Dean Phillips, got 3,300. But there was a write-in of some 3,200 against him. And as you know, Democrats, and Republicans too for that matter, there was an effort to get people to write uncommitted or to write not Joe or even ceasefire now in protest. It's a little unclear from this how big a vote that's going to be. But how meaningful is that protest vote, Shelley?
Well, I mean, listen, I think it's meaningful in that it sends a message to President Biden about what's important to people. Does it translate to being meaningful to the general election? I don't think so. This is the chance for Democrats to use that uncommitted vote to send a message to the president. But these are still folks, in my opinion, that will come out for the president in November.
Aaron, let me ask you the same question about the Biden race, and then I'll tell you about Trump.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Well, I actually agree with Shelley. I do think that, well, I agree and disagree on certain points of that, because I think that it does send a message to Biden about where people feel about the conflict in Gaza. However, I do think that those third-party candidates are going to chip away at some of that vote.
Right, and that's a good point. This does not reflect third-party candidates. On the Republican side, and again, these are Allegheny County mail-in votes very early on. Donald Trump got 9,400 Republican votes, but Nikki Haley got 5,200 Republican votes. Rico, what do you think? Is that a strong protest against Donald Trump?
I think it shows people's character and how they want to express themselves. Some people like Nikki Haley, some people like Donald Trump, and I think that they can express themselves in that. So it may affect in the primary results, but as we know, Nikki Haley has receded. So it's not going to affect at the end of the night.
Do you think in the end, Mike, that Republicans vote Republican and Democrats vote Democrat?
For the most part, yeah, but there are people that are in the moderate parts of those parties that do vote their mind, their hearts, and not always what the party tells them.
What do you think, Shelley?
I agree, and I actually think that those Nikki Haley votes are pretty important, and it could be an important indicator about November. My gut is that moderate Republicans are more likely to vote for President Biden in the November election than moderate Democrats are to vote for President Trump. And some of those Nikki Haley voters may pop over to vote for President Biden in November.
But don't leave out the ultra-liberal progressive Democrats who are not happy with President Biden. Where do they go? What do you think, Erin?
I think they're going to go to Jill Stein or possibly Cornel West. I mean, I definitely don't think
one of the third party.
One of the third party. But I disagree about the moderate Republicans. They're going to stick with Trump. I think the economy, I think the anti-fossil fuel agenda. I think Pennsylvania is an energy state. We're a battleground state. And when it comes down to it, people are going to be marching to the polls with their pocketbooks.
Enrico will give you the final word on this one. Beaver County, of course, is one of those old-time Democratic counties that has been voting Republican. Going to stick with Republicans?
Oh, it's going to stick, and that just shows by recently how Beaver County's voting propensity was for Republicans, but their registration was Democrat, and we just flipped it to all Republican on both sides. So they're staying Republican. Yeah.
Panel, thank you again. We'll be back with you more a little bit later in the show. Ken, back to you.
Okay, John, let's head over to First Alert meteorologist Ray Petlin. Ray.
Thanks, Ken. We have these showers that continue to get closer and closer to us, but you have to go back to just west of Akron down to Canton, where we see some actual showers hitting the ground. That's where the relative humidity levels are much higher than the 20 and 30 and 40% that we have here. Typically 50% or greater is what you need to pull off these showers. And that's going to be happening here in the next couple of hours. So we will turn on this rain on and off throughout the night, most of it on the lighter side. And then early tomorrow morning, any leftover rain is going to be more of a spotty type shower. So these are going to finish up, and we'll have clouds left through the day. It's going to be a gray setup throughout, but that's also going to stifle our temperatures a little bit. So we're only going to see highs tomorrow in the 50s. It's one of the cooler days, if not the coolest day of the forecast, because we're going to bring back the 60s, the 70s, and dare I even say 80-degree temperatures to the forecast. So we have temps right now in the low to mid 60s between Beaver and Pittsburgh and Greensburg, upper 60s in Morgantown. You go to Butler, Newcastle, DuBois, and Franklin, those temps are in the 50s. And lows tonight are going to drop only into the upper 40s, so there's not going to be a much of a drop at all in the temperatures tonight into tomorrow morning. But tomorrow there's not going to be a big rise in those temperatures either. We're going to stay on the chillier side, and from there we see even colder temperatures tomorrow night into Thursday. And the National Weather Service has already issued a freeze watch based on this. Now, freeze watches are issued ahead of a potential frost advisory or freeze warning. As we get into tomorrow, this will get changed to either one of those. But anyway you look at it, plants that don't like the cold likely will not like tomorrow night into Thursday. From there, our temperatures warm up. Thursday, after that frigid start, we get our temperatures back to the 60s. Then it's a couple days in the 70s, followed by a couple days in the 80s. So we go into the weekend with those warmer temperatures and kick off next week with those warmer temperatures attached. Overcast skies, scattered showers, winds out of the southwest, 10 to 15, so a little bit of a breeze. That'll carry over into tomorrow. So will that rain into the morning. So a spotty shower there. Otherwise, mainly cloudy skies. Temps back to the mid-50s. And then you can see here how this works out. Some breaks in those clouds late in the day, and that's going to lead to some clearing overnight. Bad timing to pull off the clearing because that's going to give you those colder temperatures to kick off Thursday morning down into the mid-30s in Pittsburgh. But as you venture outside the city, many of those temperatures could be down into the upper 20s and low 30s. So a real cold setup early Thursday. We warm those temperatures up nicely and keep that warming going right through the weekend into the start of next week. However, into the weekend, we are going to see some showers and thunderstorms. I don't think it's going to be a complete washout, but there's going to be some showers and even some rumbles of thunder to deal with even into Tuesday of next week.
All right, thanks, Ray. Coming up, our live team coverage of primary night continues. We'll hear from our reporters at the election night headquarters of the candidates running for Congress in the 12th district right here in the city of Pittsburgh. Welcome back to our primary election night special here on KDKA+. Ken Rice along with political editor John Delano. You know, John, once upon a time we had an attorney general here in Pennsylvania by the name of Josh Shapiro. Next thing you know, he ends up as governor and Michelle Henry takes over for him as attorney general. He had a couple of years remaining on his term. Now she says she's not running for a term on her own. And what has happened as a result?
Well, we now have a wide open race for Attorney General of Pennsylvania. Contested in both primaries, but no incumbent. So because attorney generals can be governors, and Josh Shapiro is just one example, but how about Tom Corbett?
Sure.
Mike Fisher tried,
Yep.
So did Ernie Priate, both attorneys generals in the past. But again, this is a great office for somebody who wants high visibility. On the Democratic side today, 5 candidates are in the race. And what I'm really curious about is whether the geography of these candidates make a difference. Because on the ballot, you would have noticed that the county of residence is on the name.
Yeah.
4 of the 5 candidates have Philadelphia, Bucks County, Montgomery County, and Delaware County behind their names. Only one candidate, Eugene DePasquale, has Allegheny. So we're going to watch and see what that means.
Well, we already have some numbers just in Allegheny County. These votes that were reported shortly after 8 p.m. mail-in votes. 76,000 votes have been cast in Allegheny County for Attorney General. Again, these are early returns reflecting mail-in votes. And guess who's got 56,000 of those 76,000 votes?
I have no idea. Of course I know who it is.
Yeah.
Eugene DePasquale.
Yeah.
Because residency does count. And the question is, can he rack up big numbers in Western Pennsylvania while all these other candidates, Keir, Bradford Gray, Joe Kahn, Jared Solomon, and Jack Stolzheimer, they split the vote back in Eastern Pennsylvania. We'll see if that happens.
Has Shapiro, now Shapiro I read had brought Keir Bradford Gray on in Montgomery County.
Yes, as chief public defender.
Now she's in private practice, but has he backed her? Is
No.
he? Okay,
He's scrupulously neutral, we're told, because he also has friendships with others of these candidates who are all from his region because he's from the Philly area. But no, he has not endorsed. He will, of course, bless whoever wins the primary because it does matter to the governor that you have an attorney general in your own party.
Yes. Well, we've seen what happens when there's.
But it's not.
Yeah. Okay. Republicans running for attorney general.
Yes. 2 candidates are running there. Dave Sunday, who is the York County District Attorney and endorsed by the Republican State Party, is being challenged by State Representative Craig Williams of Delaware and Chester counties, again outside Philadelphia. It's going to be interesting to see whether Williams can rack up any kind of vote. He is the more conservative candidate, so he claims. He accused Dave Sunday of being a Democrat until age 37, but it's no crime to switch parties, and sometimes that shows that you're even more fervent for your new party. So we'll see what comes of this race. Most people expect Dave Sunday, the DA from York County, to win the Republican nomination. And again, we don't know quite who's going to win that Democratic nomination.
I think there's been a renewed focus on DA and attorney general races since the George Floyd tragedy. People have gotten more interested in these races. We did a debate here between Stephen Zappala and his challenger, whose name already escapes me, the public defender. Matt Dugan, the former chief public defender.
It's not your job to remember these things.
Well, sure it is. Sure it is. I just happen to forget. But it seems to me that these are generally not, these races don't get a ton of attention, but it seems to me they have in the past 4 or 5 years.
They're getting more attention, but judging by the voter turnout today, they're not getting many votes. And so who knows? Again, low voter turnout, we don't know who that's going to help. We're going to know in a couple hours.
Okay, John, thank you. Coming up, more live team coverage from the election night headquarters of Summerlee and Bhavani Patel in that Democratic congressional primary just ahead. All All right, the polls in Pennsylvania have been closed for about 30 minutes now. The race getting the most attention is for Congress. A fellow Democrat trying to deny Congresswoman Summer Lee a nomination for a second term. Lee, the only congressional incumbent in this region to face a challenge tonight, in her case from Bhavani Patel, a council member in Edgewood Borough. We continue our team coverage on this primary night with reporters out live covering the results in that 12th congressional district race. And here in our studio, KDKA politics editor John Delano and his Inside PA Politics panelists are breaking down the races as we begin to get results. All right, right now we're going to go to Jessica Guay. She's standing by outside inside the campaign night headquarters for Bhavani Patel. Jess?
Yeah, that's right. We are inside Bhavani Patel's campaign office in Squirrel Hill, and she, her family, her campaign team, and supporters are anxiously waiting to see all of the results. We do have some unofficial early results with more than 40,000 votes counted. Patel has nearly 45% of the votes. Congresswoman Summer Lee has about 55%. Now, Patel's campaign team, volunteers and supporters are going to be showing up here at her office throughout the evening. Patel tells us that they've crisscrossed the district, reaching every single community, and they've had lots of conversations with community members to find out what really matters to them. Today, Patel visited many polling locations throughout the district and took some time to greet voters. The Edgewood Borough Councilwoman is challenging incumbent U.S. Representative Summer Lee for the Democratic nomination in the 12th Congressional District. This has been one of the most heated and most expensive primaries in the region, as it has attracted a lot of outside spending compared to most other congressional primaries in PA. Patel accuses Lee of abandoning President Joe Biden in favor of an ultra-left-wing agenda that she says doesn't represent the region. Now, Patel's been running on a platform of supporting President Biden and aid for Israel. The congressional hopeful says she's committed to advancing issues like advocating for gun violence prevention, fighting for reproductive justice, access to affordable health care, and building a strong economy. She says that she'll be an ally to President Biden to help create good-paying union jobs here in the district. And here's what she had to say to us earlier at the polls.
I think Western Pennsylvania deserves a leader where every voice is represented and every voice is reflected. I think as somebody who grew up in Monroeville, went to Gateway K through 12, I think we can, adopt socially progressive values while having mainstream Democratic voices and bringing people into the party. I think people are tired of division. I think that they're tired of stoking hatred, and I think we need to broaden the Democratic fold and hold on to the promise of the American dream.
And while we keep an eye on the votes coming in here, I'm going to toss things over to Chris Hoffman, who's at Summer Lee's watch party tonight. Hey, Chris.
Hey, Jessica. Yeah, Summer Lee's watch party is at the Renaissance here in downtown. Things are starting to get kicked off here. Last half hour, a lot of people really kind of coming in here. Now, right now, according to those unofficial results, it looks like Congresswoman Lee has about a 4,000 vote lead. These are the mail-in ballots. That's why it came back so quickly. We're still seeing some of the day of totals at this point. Now, Lee is looking for a second term in Congress. She's already been endorsed by Pittsburgh Mayor Ed Gainey, as well as Allegheny County Executive Sarah Innamorato. Congresswoman Lee also routinely votes with the squad, the progressive members of the House of Representatives in Congress. Now, Lee did cast her ballot this morning in Swissvale. She was asked if she voted for President Joe Biden. Representative Lee has been critical of the president, especially for his stance on the conflict in Gaza. Now, she told reporters she did vote for the president to be the Democratic Party's nominee for the presidential election in November. Lee is the first black woman elected to Congress in Pennsylvania while representing a highly white district that encompasses Pittsburgh, the South Hills, the Maud Valley, some eastern suburbs, as well as areas of Westmoreland County like Murraysville. With significantly different socioeconomic issues for each of those areas, she says there will be times that not everyone in the district is going to see eye to eye on every issue.
We recognize that we have to be responsible to talking to all of those people at all the times so that they realize that even if we don't always agree, that we are still working to solve the everyday problems that people in Western Pennsylvania have.
At this point, we haven't seen Congresswoman Lee yet, but speaking with her campaign, they are excited so far from some of these mail-in returns, especially in some of the suburbs like Monroeville, Bethel Park, Upper St. Clair, and McKeesport, which right now she does appear to be winning. Again, these are the mail-in ballots. We're still waiting for day of ballots. Back to you in the studio, Ken.
All right, Chris, thanks much. Coming up, checking in with John Delano and his Inside PA Politics panel, their insight on these early returns and what tonight might tell us about November. Welcome back to our election night special here on KDK Plus. Ken Rice along with John Delano. And unofficial early results show Congresswoman Summer Lee leading in the early going here, leading 55-44. These are results from mail-in ballots in Allegheny County. We're still waiting for the majority of ballots to come in. But in the early going here, Summer Lee is out in front. John, is there anything to make of these numbers?
Well, you don't want to read too much into this because, again, this is a very small percentage of the district as a whole. As far as we understand, we still have, of course, all the votes of the people who voted today, who actually showed up. I think Patel is not doing badly with about 44-45%, but it's still a loss by 10 points if that's the ultimate result.
Yeah.
And I really want to see what some of the in-person voting is all about before you draw any real judgments on this race.
It seemed that the race developed in a different way than a lot of people expected. You look at Summer Lee's race 2 years ago, a very tight, she won in a squeaker in the primary in 2022. And then this time around, I think there was an expectation that she would attract a strong challenger because of the view on the part of some that she's too progressive for the district. Yeah. And yet it didn't turn out that way.
No, it really didn't. I mean, Bhavani Patel, who's a councilwoman in Edgewood, people don't really know her.
Right, not to comment on her qualifications, but I'm just saying that her name is unfamiliar to some people.
She was very unfamiliar.
Yeah.
And frankly, AIPAC, which is the American Israel Political Action Committee, many people expected that group to spend a lot of money against Summer Lee, as they did 2 years ago.
Yes.
They ended up spending zero. They didn't spend any money to help Bhavani Patel.
A reflection that Lee was seen as not that vulnerable?
That's exactly right, that Lee was seen as the winner. Why waste money on a race that you can't win? At least that was the perception in Washington, D.C. A lot of folks down, the pundits in Washington, D.C. don't always get it right. So we'll see later tonight whether they might have wished to have helped Patel more if this race is closer than people thought. We'll see.
All right, coming up, they can't cast a vote, but they can help you vote. How local student volunteers kept the polls humming today. Welcome back. Polls have been closed for about 45 minutes in Pennsylvania now, and while we're not going to know the final results for many races for a while yet, we are getting mail-in ballots and the first precincts reporting. Let's head over to KDK political editor John Delano and his Inside PA Politics panel. John.
Well, thanks, Ken. Let me just ask a couple questions, if I may. We've been seeing some of these mail-in results from not only Allegheny County, but now across the state. Do you draw any conclusions from these, Rico?
I think that it shows with the mail-in ballots that people are still interested and invested into what's going on across the state in different races, but I think there needs to be more. So I think that people need to come out and need to start voting more and need to really get involved in the primary just as much as they get involved in the general.
Yeah, and that's certainly not happening this time around, is it, Mike?
No, and with the lack of in-person voting that I saw in Findlay Township at around 5 o'clock and the lack of absentee ballots, I think the lesson to be learned is we need to vote. People need to vote. People need to voice their opinion.
Do you think there are other lessons that we can take out of this primary, Aaron?
Yeah, I think there's a lack of enthusiasm all around. Maybe it's from our top of the ballot down. And I think, too, you have to remember when you sign up for your mail-in ballot for the primary, you automatically get it for November. So I think a lot of these Republicans that didn't vote by mail are going to have to get on the train for November because we need to win.
Well, let's point out a quick statistic there because you're quite right on the mail-in ballots. We had 500,000 mail-in ballots in the state of Pennsylvania. 76% of them came from Democrats. And I know there's been an effort to try to beef up the Republican numbers, but it hasn't worked yet.
We're trying very hard. I'm one of those Republicans in the grassroots that advocates for voting by mail, early voting, using all the above approach tools. Right. And we need to take advantage of the 50 days of voting and not just wait till one day on Election Day.
What do you think, Shelley, are some of the lessons learned from this primary?
I think we're seeing what we knew, which was that people aren't excited about these candidates. And to Aaron's point, that really starts at the top. Obviously, that's what drives voters out to the polls in these primary elections to begin with. Nobody's really excited about voting for either Biden or Trump. We're seeing that tonight, I think, just as we expected to.
Well, here's the real question, though, for younger voters, and you represent younger voters. I'm the only old guy on the panel here. If there is unhappiness, particularly among younger voters, with Joe Biden and Donald Trump, what do they do? How do they vote? Mike?
It's $1 million question.
It is. It's a very good question. I think people at the end of the day on general election day realize that they need to vote. And, you know, if it's one time every 4 years, you have a lot of people that vote that day. Or,
so you know, what, hold your nose, Shelley?
I think that's exactly what will happen. I think that particularly on the Democratic side, there are enough people with enough animus towards Trump that will be enough to drive them out to the polls, even if they're not excited.
Aaron, last word, real quick.
Nationally, Gen Z voters are backing Donald Trump. They don't want to be drafted to war. They want to be able to afford a home. They want to be able to thrive. So I think that the young voters are going to come out, and we're going to see it across the country in November.
Here's something I never get to do. Toss to Ray Petland for the returns of the weather. Ray?
You should be able to do this more often. I loved it. Awesome, John. Thank you. We have these light showers trying to move in. For the most part, these aren't quite reaching the ground just yet, and if they are, it's just a little raindrop here, a little raindrop there. This isn't going to take long, though. In the next couple hours, that rain is going to take over. You can see just how beefy those relative humidities are in Akron, Youngstown, Cleveland, even up into Franklin. So they're going up quite quickly. And once you get above 50%, that's where you start seeing the better shots for rain. So rain is going to be turning on. It's going to be light but scattered around until tomorrow morning when it becomes isolated and then finishes up. We'll be left behind with some clouds, but overall a cooler setup for tomorrow, but not as cold as what we're going to see tomorrow night into early Thursday. This is where a freeze watch is in effect. Now, freeze watches are issued ahead of either a frost advisory or a freeze warning. So this will get changed to either one of those tomorrow, but plan on temperatures cold enough to damage sensitive vegetation, especially as you wander north of the city. Showers through much of Ohio, pretty much all down I-77 between Cleveland, Akron, New Philadelphia, Canton, Cambridge, and that's what's moving towards us. The radar showed some rain over Newcastle, but that's not quite reported at the ground just yet. Temperatures back to the west. Yes, we're going to get a colder day for tomorrow and into early Thursday, but there's a lot of warm air back to the west. And look what happens with these temperatures into the coming days. Yes, tomorrow chilly. We start to build up on Thursday, and from there it's the 70s, low to mid 70s at that for Friday and Saturday, lower 80s Sunday and Monday. So we are going to get a little summer feel to the forecast after we get through our chilly, cloudy day tomorrow. Overnight, 47 degrees, scattered showers, otherwise cloudy skies. Those clouds aren't going to be breaking up too much tomorrow, so pretty stubborn with the cloud cover, a cooler day. And in the morning, we could see a couple of showers still trying to hang on, but overall a cloudy day until late. That's when the clouds start to break up, and that's where we get our temperatures topping off in the mid-50s for just a little bit. A cold start to your Thursday, and that's the coldest temperature of this whole forecast. We're going to see those numbers taken off, 60s Thursday afternoon in spite of that cold start. Friday, still a nice sunny setup, and 72 for the weekend. There are going to be some showers around. There's going to be breaks, but again, there's going to be some rain to deal with. Temperatures make a big jump between Saturday and Sunday. Monday and Tuesday, you're looking at those temperatures going from the lower 80s back to the mid 70s, which is still quite warm, with another chance for storms.
All right, thanks, Ray. Coming back with more of our primary election night special here on KDKA Plus in just a moment. This is a critical day for our democratic process in the state of Pennsylvania, and the next generation of voters was out lending a hand at polling places today. 24 high school juniors and seniors, some of them too young to vote, volunteered as poll workers in their community. We spoke with some of them at the Jefferson Hills District 7 polling place, where they got to see people exercising their right to vote with their help.
So they'll just come to us and I'll write their names down, and and then they can go around and vote and put it in the machine.
I've always been so excited to vote when I was finally able to, so I registered as soon as I was 18, and today was my first time voting.
And while some of the volunteers served half days at polling locations, others were sticking around even after the polls closed to get the full experience of securing the ballots to be taken to the county election headquarters. We'll be right back. With the polls in the Pennsylvania primary closed for just under 1 hour now, let's take a look at the major races we've been following throughout the evening. Starting with the 12th Congressional District, the race among Democrats, incumbent Summer Lee and Bhavani Patel. It's Summer Lee with about a 13, almost 14-point lead over Patel. Again, these are early numbers, 44% of precincts reporting, actually more than I thought. Here are the results in the Democratic primary for State Attorney General. It's Eugene DePasquale from here in Allegheny County in front, leading the 4 other Democrats running for the Democratic nomination for State Attorney General. In the Republican primary for State Attorney General, here's how it looks. Dave Sunday from York County, way out in front of Craig Williams. And in the Democratic primary for Auditor General tonight, it's Malcolm Kenyatta, the state rep from Philly, with a strong lead over Mark Pinsley. And in the Democratic primary for State Treasurer, it's Aaron McClellan, 2-time candidate for Congress from this region, leading Ryan Bizzarro, state rep up in Erie County. And finally, in the Republican presidential primary, no real race since the opponents to the frontrunners have dropped out. You see Donald Trump way in front, but Nikki Haley pulling almost 30% of the vote on the Republican side. And for the Democrats, it's President Biden with a very large lead over Dean Phillips, whose name, like Haley's, remained on the ballot even though he quit campaigning. Also, U.S. Senate candidates, Bob Casey for the Democrats, Dave McCormick for the Republicans, on the ballot tonight, but neither facing a primary challenger. All right, that's going to do it for our primary election night special here on KDKA+. Thanks to our reporters, to John Delano, the Inside PA Politics panel, and thanks to you for joining us. Join John and me at 10 for more news here on KDKA+ and at 11 on KDKA, and we're continually updating results at KDKA.com. I'm Ken Rice, and I'll see you in 1 hour.